Right friends, once again welcome back to Learning Space. Today editorials discussion, there are 5 issues of the Hindu. One is elections in Manipur, second one is Donald Trump's address to US Congress, third one is with regard to the expenditure of political parties or you can say candidates in Lok Sabha and Assembly elections, what is the way out, and the next one is with regard to the incidents in universities or colleges. There is debate going on in the country, left view, right view and middle view. That is, there is one article in the Hindu today, and Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, what is the need for modifying it. So, all these things we are going to deliberate today. The first is with regard to the stakes in Manipur. I am not going into the political angle, and I would like to explain you what are the recent issues as far as Manipur is concerned. Manipur, please look into this. Manipur has got borders of Nagaland on one side, then it is Mizoram and Assam. So, Manipur borders are Nagaland, Mizoram, Assam, and at the same time please do not forget Myanmar has got border with 4 Indian states. Myanmar has got border with 4 Indian states. They are Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram, and at the same time Bangladesh has got border with 5 Indian states. So, these things, please analyze the map of northeastern part of the country closely, because some of the questions may be asked with regard to the geographical boundaries of our eastern neighbors or boundaries of some states of northeastern part of the country. So, this is about Manipur, and now elections are going to be held. All of you are clear that Manipur elections are going to be held in 2 phases, and Uttar Pradesh elections in 7 phases, and remaining 3 states only in single phase, and the expenditure limit for each candidate is rupees 20 lakh in Manipur and Goa and 28 lakh in other 3 states. Having said this, I would like to throw some light on the recent agitation in Manipur. All of you are clear about the Manipur road blockade for a few months. In fact, road blockade is going on, and this road blockade is called by United Naga Council. United Naga Council is supported by NSCN. NSCN supports United Naga Council, and another important point is NSCN already had peace talks and you can say some sort of understanding with central government. So, here what is the issue? The issue is previously there were 9 districts. There were previously 9 districts, then 7 new districts were created. Total districts became 9 to 16, and here the issue is Nagas predominantly against the division, because they are of the view that their dominated districts are bifurcated. They were not consulted, and in some districts because of this bifurcation their dominance will go away. So, that is the main context of this Naga agitation. So, Nagas resorted to road blockade for 3-4 months, and there is a feeling in Manipur, especially by the Congress government, that the center has not done much. Because of the reason, United Naga Council is supported by NSCN, and center has got peace agreement with NSCN. Because of this reason, there is a feeling that center has not supported Manipur government in this regard. Please do not forget, Manipur government is led by Congress. And another important point I would like to tell you, there are 40 seats in valley, 20 seats in hilly regions. 40 seats in valley region, 20 seats in hilly region, and valley region is basically dominated by Métis. Valley region is dominated by Métis, and the hilly region is dominated by Nagas. So, it is almost, you can say, animosity at present is between Métis and Nagas, and you can say Nagas are not happy with the developments of bifurcating districts from 9 to 16. So, that is why they resorted to road blockade. So, it appears that the state is divided clearly, even in voting pattern also, between valley and hilly areas. Valley area has got 40 seats, hilly area has got 20 assembly constituencies. So, this is all about the agitation and road blockade in Manipur, which is going on for the past 3-4 months. Then the second issue is conciliatory sketchy. Donald Trump addressed the Congress, and here the address as per this editorial is conciliatory. Somehow he is changing his strategy. Previously he was going aggressively with anti-immigration policies, one China policy like that, and this address to Congress somewhat looks like conciliatory tone. That is one aspect. Second one is sketchy. What is the meaning of sketchy? It is not concrete, it is without details. So, the speech by Donald Trump is conciliatory and sketchy. And please do not forget, United States of America is presidential constitutional republic, and there is a major difference between Indian democracy and USA democracy. Indian democracy is a parliamentary form of democracy, USA democracy is a presidential form of democracy, and their Congress means both the lower house and upper house. Lower house is House of Representatives and the upper house is Senate. And day before yesterday, Donald Trump addressed US Congress, which means it is both House of Representatives and Senate. And certain designations, please do not forget, when someone says a Secretary of State in United States of America, it is equivalent to Ministry of External Affairs here. Similarly, Secretary of Defense is equivalent to Minister for Defense here, and here Secretary of the Treasury is equivalent to Minister for Finance. The change in the designations is probably due to the change in the pattern of democracy in India and USA. One is parliamentary democracy and the other one is presidential form of democracy. So, the change in designations is probably because of that reason. Then we discussed last week hate crime. Srinivas Kuchibhotla was killed, and subsequently some people commented that it is one of the hate crime, but certain sections of society feels that it is isolated incident and nothing can be attributed to it, or you can say it cannot be classified as hate crime. Hate crime means when bias motivated crime. He is so and so caste, so I develop hate, and when I kill him, that is a hate crime. Xenophobia. Xenophobia is hatred of foreigners. When foreigners are hatred, or you can say animosity, hatredness develops against foreigners, that is xenophobia. And emigrant, I explained last week. If you take up the case of Srinivas Kuchibhotla, Srinivas Kuchibhotla is immigrant if you look at United States of America, he is emigrant if you take up India, right. So, this is the difference between emigrant and immigrant, right. Now, let us look at the joint address to Congress, various points. Now, there is a slightly a reconciliatory tone because immigration will be allowed with merit based system. For the first time, Donald Trump now stated, that means he shifted his strategy slightly when he stated he will consider merit based system as far as immigration is concerned. Then the second one is he proposed victims of immigration crime engagement. Victims of immigration crime engagement, the meaning of this is crimes committed by undocumented immigrants. The crimes committed by undocumented immigrants will be dealt with by a special agency. So, for crimes committed by undocumented immigrants in USA, there will be separate agency to deal with those cases. And incidentally, please don't forget, the crimes committed by the Americans are much more than the crimes committed by undocumented immigrants. Probably the people from Mexico must be in his mind before making this sentence. Third one is, he is talking about Harley Davidson motorcycles. Harley Davidson motorcycles, these are high cost motorcycles. These are manufactured by United States of America, and there is 100% duty imposed by India. India imposes 100% duty on Harley Davidson motorcycles, and without naming India, Donald Trump referred to a country which taxes 100% on Harley Davidson motorcycles. Probably this is a reiteration of his idea of introducing protectionist measures in USA trade policy. So, to protect their own industry, some protectionist measures may be imposed, and this probably reiteration of Trump's policy. The fourth one is, he named several companies in his speech as firms promising to invest in production lines on US soil after he came to power. He cited several companies who promised to invest in the United States of America itself after he came to power, but the reality is these firms, most of these firms committed that investment before he came to power in the Barack Obama's time itself. So, there is some factual misjudgment here. Then the next one is, the speech is not clear about what exactly historic tax reform. He talks about historic tax reform which will enable US companies to be competitive in the world market, and he is sketchy in this regard. He has not looked at the details. So, historic tax reforms, so far no one is clear what exactly is meant by historic tax reform. So, overall, in a nutshell, the address by Donald Trump, or you can say overall Trump's speech may be an inflection point in his evolution towards a more conciliatory tone. So, somewhat he changed his tact, and now he is somewhat in a conciliatory mode, and leaving his altogether aggressive posture, he is now shifting tack lightly. That is the editorial's comment. Third one, campaigning on a budget. Here it talks about the political parties' anonymous donations. Previously also we have seen several articles on this, and please club all these aspects so that you can easily write an article, or you can easily face an essay, or you can easily answer any question in interview. And this on this, before going ahead, let me tell you simultaneous polls. We presented one capsule number 3 of 44th week last year. It discussed pros and cons of simultaneous polls. Please read the PPTs, or please view the module, and at the same time, on 17th February, whether elections be state funded or not, state funding of elections is feasible or not, the view, counter view, middle path, these aspects we discussed in the editorial discussion of 17th February. Please view that carefully. And this talking about political funding, political corruption, and anonymous donations, and what needs to be done. I will throw some light on these aspects as per this article, and here the article specifically states about political funding. Political funding, people are thinking just party funding, but political parties not only got funding, but their candidates are sometimes directly funded by anonymous sources. Directly or indirectly, candidates are being funded by various persons, by various companies. So, here political funding, people have got misnomer that only parties are getting funding, but as per this article, election expenditure of candidates for Lok Sabha, though the limit is 70 lakhs, but they spend 10 crores minimum. Several constituencies spend at least 10 crores. The winning candidate might have spent not less than rupees 10 crore, and election expenditure for candidates for state assemblies minimum in some states the spending runs into 5 crores, 6 crores, and expenditure even for local body elections like municipal corporations like Mumbai are also funded by various companies. So, here political funding is to be understood in the broader context. It should not be limited narrowly to the parties, right. Then political corruption. Political corruption is much wider term, basically funding members of legislative organ of political parties. Here basically funding members of parliament or legislative assembly members so as to get some indirect benefits to them, that is political corruption. At the same time, members of executive branch of the government like ministers or bureaucrats, and here members of the judiciary. So, corruption is there, political corruption is there in all these organs in our country. Of course, there may be some exceptions, and the article talks about political corruption in these three organs is there. So, you have to view entire thing, and the conclusion as per this article is there is a radical viewpoint with regard to the relation between legislative and executive. So, that is the final conclusion as per this article. And here total income of political parties from 2004-5 to 2014-15 during around 11 years, total income to political parties is around 11,000 crores. And here the share of Congress and BJP was more than half, and for amounts more than 20,000 only 16% is received. So, from the sources other than anonymous, it is just 16% is received, more than 20,000, because till date below 20,000 is classified as anonymous donations. So, above rupees 20,000 only 16% is received, and 69% came from unknown sources. This is the real problem. 69% of political funding is from unknown sources. And if you look at the regional parties, 3/4 of the income came from unknown sources, and if you look at the unknown sources income for national parties, it increased by 313%, whereas for regional parties it increased by 650%. That means in our country regional parties are becoming powerful day by day. Then if you look at other aspects, here some calculation is given with regard to spending for Lok Sabha as well as assembly constituencies. So, by spending this much, here please go through it. Each member of parliament who got elected might have spent at least 10 crores, and each member of legislative assembly in some states might have spent rupees 5 crore to get elected. And subsequently what he will do? He will try to get back that money. So, that is the crux of the matter. So, by spending this much, they will try to gain advantage much more than this. Then, what is the way out? The way out is, one is holding simultaneous polls to Lok Sabha and state assemblies. There is a lot of debate going on. Then election commission should closely monitor the election process including expenditure. The present way of monitoring the expenditure in fact is not foolproof. Citizens should act as watchdogs. Whether it is possible in our country, we have to see. Decentralization of power in more substantive ways. Decentralization of power will definitely reduce political corruption, because now power is concentrated in the executive, and the differentiation, or you can say the relation between executive and legislative organs are intertwined, you can say. So, you cannot separate corruption under these circumstances because of the reason this legislative and executive organs are interconnected or well connected. Under these circumstances, to ensure that some law is made in their favor, legislatures are in a position to influence the executive in our country. That is why the article says reordering the relation between the legislature and executive is the need of the hour. So, probably the endemic problem of money power in elections requires more radical solutions. Right. So, this is the final conclusion of this article. Are our campuses are under siege? All of you are familiar with college incident. This is Delhi University College. The issue is cancellation of a seminar invite to JNU students. Umar Khalid, Shahla Rashid. Umar Khalid last year was charged with the sedition charges. Previously, they were called to Ramjas College, and subsequently, because of a lot of pressure from ABVP, their invitation was cancelled. It led to lot of discussion across the country, and at the same time it also led to violent protests. And here Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad or ABVP on one side, this is All India Students Association on the other side. So, there is lot of discussion going on across the country, and here what is left, what is right? Right, or you can say right wing, is normally traditionalists, conservatives, and who want the present form of hierarchy. These are general traits I am talking about. The exact definition of right and left to be in fact cannot be defined, but at present, as per the present day political atmosphere, right wing means conservatives, then somewhat traditionalists, and somewhat giving prominence to capitalistic society who value the hierarchy of society. So, these are termed as right wing parties, and left wing parties basically the ideology of communism, socialism, freedom, liberalism. These are the thought processes of left wing, and here ABVP is considered as right wing ideology, the union with, or you can say students union with right wing ideology, and All India Students Federation is considered as the students wing with left wing ideology. And now after this incident, today's article throws some light on what is the view of left, what is the view of right, or you can say what is the view of this leftist ideologists, and what is the view of rightist ideologists, and what is the third view. These viewpoints we are going to deliberate now. And view of left after the incidents of this Delhi University College, left view is, first of all, these are pointers to surveillance society. What is meant by surveillance society? When the human beings are kept under police surveillance. What I am doing, what you are doing, if the state is keeping an eye on our activities, it is a surveillance society. So, these are pointers to surveillance society. Then turning educational institutions into identity politics. Last week we discussed about what is meant by identity politics. Identity politics are basically the politics which separate one from the other, one group against other group. If I am one particular religion, I will have particular identity, and another religion, another identity. So, not based on rational thinking, but based on certain religion, certain caste, certain community. When the politics are revolving around, that is identity politics. So, turning into identity politics, left says that it is organized assault on the ideologies of socialism, liberalism. Then moral and cultural policing on institutions. So, morally, culturally, how you should look like, how you should behave, because our country or our culture suggests this. Do not go by rational thinking, just go by our culture, just go by our ancestral values. So, that is the ideology which is perpetrating into educational institutions in the view of left. Next, perpetrating cultural consciousness based on religion. So, based on religion, cultural consciousness is being inculcated in educational institutions, and instead of rational thinking, educational institutions are becoming breeding grounds with cultural consciousness and identity politics, right. Next one is the present situation is the preventing understanding between state and society. What is the goal of educational institution? The goal of educational institution is to understand the role of state and the relation between state and society. Society consists of several groups, maybe backward classes, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women, like different groups are there. So, what is the understanding and what is the relation between state and society sorry, that must be understood, and educational institutions are for that purpose, are meant for that purpose. So, that is the understanding of this sentence. So, as per the left's view, governments do not want alternative policy of governance. So, here governments do not want alternative policy of governance, status quo must be maintained, and if anyone thinks about emancipating the plight of the backward classes, or if anyone is thinking on those lines, governments do not want alternate policy of governance, and these are the views of left. Right, the view of right is raising anti-India slogans cannot be right under freedom of expression. If someone is raising anti-India slogans, it is against right of freedom of expression. Freedom of expression cannot grant everything. So, as per the right's view, raising anti-India slogans cannot be the right under freedom of expression, and for the leftists, the idea of a nation is an artificial construction. As per the right view, as per the view of the rightist forces, country cannot be artificial construction, and if you look at India, India is something different. India is a nation, as a nation is a sui generis. What is the meaning of sui generis? Sui generis means one of its kind, a class by itself. The philosophy of this Indian consciousness is one of its own, a class by itself, and the ideology of the left is nation is an artificial construction subject to revision, negotiation and reinterpretation, which is not the case with India. India is unique, India is something different, and historically it refers to an entity with distinct culture, social protections, sets and beliefs. And Bharat Rashtra is a natural reality, it is not artificial construction, and what underlies in our country is an emotional connect. So, this is the view of the rightist forces, and rightist forces say that reviving authentic Bharatiya soch, Bharatiya thinking is not palatable to some leftists. So, this is the viewpoint of right. What is the third view? Third view is, in fact, left is historically very broad category inhabited by diverse ways of thinking, and in fact, historians R.S. Sharma as well as Romila Thapar, they consider to be leftists, but have different methodologies, and at the same time, please do not forget, even the left in West Bengal, which was in power for more than 30 years, destroyed intellectual space. So, destroying intellectual space is being undertaken by almost all the parties, whoever is in power. So, destroying intellectual space is the crux of the matter, and all the parties with different ideologies are doing it. Then now RSS is defining its nationalism, which has a Hindu overhang. And if you question this, you are being dubbed as anti-national, and it is an outright attack on the very freedom to know, to think. So, overall, the target is the mind which thinks freely. So, intellectual space in educational institutions must not be disturbed, right. So, intellectual space is the need of the hour, right. So, let us wind up this discussion here. After looking at these three views, you have to look at what exactly the right view. Then the right to choice, this is with regard to Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971, and look at two incidents. The first case, in January 17, Supreme Court bench had relaxed 20-week cap. You may have a doubt, what is the meaning of 20-week cap? Before understanding these two cases, please look into this. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971 says that a pregnancy can be terminated only up to a maximum period of 20 weeks. Here please look into this, maximum period of 20 weeks. Different conditions are there. I have listed out here. Please go through them. So, here when the length of the pregnancy does not exceed 20 weeks, it can be terminated provided the continuation of the pregnancy would involve a risk to the life of the pregnant woman. So, here if the continuation of pregnancy involves risk to the life of the pregnant woman or grave injury to her physical or mental health, when it constitutes grave injury to her physical or mental health, and if there is a substantial risk that if the child were born, it would suffer from such physical or mental abnormalities. Under these circumstances, please listen carefully, under these circumstances, pregnancy can be terminated up to the maximum of 20 weeks. Beyond 20 weeks, no one can do anything. That is why Supreme Court is interfering if the pregnancy is more than 20 weeks. So, this is as per Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. Then, what is the case now? First case is of January 17, second case is of February. In the first case, Supreme Court bench had relaxed 20-week cap and it agreed to terminate the 24-week pregnancy. It agreed to terminate 24-week pregnancy because the court felt that the abortion was necessary to preserve the woman's life. Look at the second case. Now, 26-week pregnancy went to Supreme Court. The cause here is the child is suffering from Down syndrome. Down syndrome, what is the meaning? Down syndrome is congenital disorder. What is meant by congenital disorder? Congenital disorder means the disorder which comes into effect from birth. By birth they will have disorder. So, this intellectual impairment will take place in Down syndrome in addition to physical abnormalities, and this congenital disorder Down syndrome, a pregnancy is detected with this Down syndrome and the matter went to Supreme Court because the time period is 26th week and the Supreme Court not agreed. Why it has not agreed? Because it called the fetus a life. 26th week pregnancy, it has got life, so we cannot give permission. So, these two cases, one at 24th week and the other at 26th week. At 26th week, Supreme Court refused to give permission for termination of pregnancy, stating that fetus has got life. So, these two cases puts into focus this Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. So, this is up to 20 weeks it is permitting under special circumstances. Beyond 20 weeks, there is no law as on date. Here you see, draft bill of 2014 was in fact framed. It could not see the light of the day and as per the draft bill, in fact, the length of the pregnancy shall not apply if the fetus is diagnosed with substantial abnormalities. So, the length of the pregnancy shall not apply if the fetus is diagnosed with substantial fetal abnormalities as may be prescribed. And at the same time, it also increases the legal limit for abortion from 20 weeks to 24 weeks. This bill was not passed, that is different story, but there is a strong case for this modifying or bringing amendments to this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. Then at the same time, it also allows a woman, this draft bill I am talking about, to take an independent decision in consultation with a registered health care provider. And you may have a doubt, why is it urgently required to amend Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971? There are valid reasons, because now after 20 weeks there is no law. Rarely cases are going to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court sometimes agreeing to it, sometimes not agreeing to it. And 1971 Act permits only up to 20 weeks. Beyond 20 weeks, rule is absent or law is absent. Now, what is the need for increasing beyond 20 weeks? There are several reasons for it. First and the foremost is fetal abnormalities. Abnormalities in fetus, they shows up by 18 weeks, only by 18 weeks. By 18 weeks, if any abnormality is there in the fetus, that shows up. But you see, the time is there only 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, medical examination, subsequently looking at other alternatives, because termination of pregnancy is the extreme step for any family or woman. So, before taking that extreme step, they should have alternatives, and to look at these alternatives, 2 weeks is not sufficient. That is one reason. Second reason is, nowadays sex crimes, especially rapes, are increasing in our country, and the urgent need is to empower women with rights and more choices, which is in their own interest. So, this is another social problem in our country. So, to come out of this social problem, this is the need of the hour. The next one is, technology is totally advanced now. This magnetic resonance image and the present day technology can take note of even minor abnormalities in the fetus. At the same time, another important aspect is several abnormalities may surface after 20 weeks. So, to look into these aspects, in fact, the need is there for amending this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, right. So, here if we amend it, now what is being happened? If the pregnancy is 24 weeks, 25 weeks, then it is done hidden way by quacks. It is not coming into the regular hospitals or institutions, because of the reason, if the pregnancy is more than 20 weeks, they will be caught under the present law. So, several quacks are doing these abortions, and sometimes it is leading to the death of the mother also. Right, friends. So, we came to the end of this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971. So, with this, let us conclude today's newspaper editorial discussion, and please do join for 12 noon. Have a nice day. Thank you.